The courtroom has never been this silent, not even on the day Christine first took the stand. But now, as the bailiff opens the door and a witness nobody expected steps inside, every Brown family member freezes. Kody's jaw tightens. Robin's eyes widen. Janelle whispers, "It can't be her." And even the judge leans forward, sensing the shift in the air. Because the truth they've all been running from, the truth that could shatter every remaining bond between these sister wives, is finally walking toward the stand. And she's not holding back this time. Before we continue, what would you do if someone you trusted walked into a courtroom ready to expose every secret you've ever hidden? The courtroom feels different today. Not colder, not warmer, just heavier. Like the air itself is thick with secrets nobody wants to breathe in. The fans on the ceiling spin lazily, pushing around that heaviness instead of clearing it, and even the lights seem dimmer, casting long shadows across the polished floor. The kind of shadows that remind you certain things refuse to stay buried, no matter how deeply a family tries to hide them. Everyone is already seated when the judge walks in, but it isn't the judge who steals the room's attention. It's the silence. A silence so tight and so fragile that even a whisper could snap it in half. Christine sits stiffly at the plaintiff's table, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles have turned white. Janelle taps her finger against her notebook, but not with her usual steady rhythm. This tapping is uneven, nervous. Mary hasn't said a word yet, her eyes fixed on a single spot on the wall, as if she's trying to hold herself together by staring at something that won't stare back. And then there's Robin. Her chin trembles, her breath is shallow. She clutches a tissue like it's the only thing in the world still willing to stay on her side. But Kody sits differently, back straight, shoulders set, jaw clenched. A man trying to project control in a place where he has none. His eyes dart from the judge to the door, to the attorney, back to the door again. He's preparing himself for something. But even he doesn't know what. Or maybe he does. And that's why he can't sit still. Because Section 5 doesn't begin with testimony, it begins with a knock. Not a loud one. Not a slow one. Just a single low thud against the courtroom door. Almost like the person on the other side hesitated before making contact. Almost like they weren't sure if they wanted to walk in at all. But the bailiff opens the door anyway. And everything, absolutely everything, stops. The first thing we see is a shadow. A tall, thin outline cast across the hallway tile, stretching into the courtroom like a warning. Then we see a hand, gripping the door frame. Small, pale, trembling just slightly. The person steps forward slowly, one foot after the other, and for a moment, the entire Brown family, every wife, every child present, every friend seated behind the railing, sits frozen in complete disbelief. The witness stepping inside is someone none of them expected, someone they never wanted to see again in this kind of setting. Someone who knows things, deep things, the kind of secrets whispered at night, confessed in moments of weakness, made behind closed doors with "you can never repeat this" at the end. Robin gasps. Not the dramatic gasp she's been accused of over the years. No, this one is raw, honest, ripped straight from her gut. Janelle's pen drops from her fingers and rolls across the table. Mary's lips part, but no sound emerges. Christine's fingers tighten even more, and her eyes flood instantly. She wasn't prepared. Not for this. Not today. And Kody's jaw loosens, just slightly, before tightening again. His face drains of color, then flushes red. His eyes flicker with something almost like fear, before he forces it down beneath a layer of anger. The judge clears his throat. "Please step forward. State your name for the record." But the witness doesn't answer right away. She takes a long look at the room, at the faces she once trusted, the family she once shared meals, laughter, and heartbreak with, and the silence stretches so far it becomes suffocating. Then finally, in a voice that cracks at the edges, she speaks. "My name is Aspen Brown." And the courtroom explodes with whispers. Aspen, Christine and Kody's daughter, The child who grew up watching the fractures form long before the world saw them. The child who carried stories no kid should have to carry. The child who always stayed quiet out of loyalty. Until today. Kody shifts uncomfortably, his lawyer whispering rapid instructions into his ear. Robin's tears spill over instantly, shoulders trembling. Christine brings her hand to her mouth, shaking her head, as if she can't believe Aspen is here, in a courtroom, ready to speak about the things the family swore to protect her from. The judge gestures her toward the stand. Ms. Brown, please take your seat. Aspen walks down the aisle, but each step seems weighted with years of memories, good and bad, like she's dragging them behind her. She sits slowly, folds her hands neatly in her lap, and avoids looking at her father. The attorney approaches her with gentleness, as if she's a glass ornament that might shatter if spoken to too harshly. Aspen, I know this wasn't easy, but can you tell the court why you decided to come forward today? Her chin lifts, her eyes glisten, and for the first time, the strength she kept hidden since childhood rises to the surface. She inhales. She exhales. Then she says, because there's something they don't know yet. Something none of them want to admit. Something that's been buried for years. But it's time. The room erupts again. Gasps. Murmurs. Someone in the gallery actually drops their phone onto the floor. But Aspen speaks over the chaos. I didn't come here to hurt anyone. I came here because the truth deserves to be told, even if it destroys what's left of our family. Christine's eyes brim, and she whispers, "Oh, honey." But Aspen avoids her mother's gaze too. She isn't here as a daughter. She's here as a witness. The attorney nods. And what truth is that? Aspen closes her eyes for a brief second, gathering the courage she's needed for over a decade. And then she says it. It started the night Dad told us the family was changing. But it wasn't the first time he said that. And it wasn't the real reason he said it. There's something he's not telling any of you. Something I overheard. Something that explains everything. Kody slams his hand onto the table. Aspen, that's enough. You don't know what you're talking about. You were a child. But the judge cuts him off sharply. Mr. Brown, if you speak out of turn again, you will be removed from this courtroom. Kody's mouth snaps shut. His nostrils flare, but he sits back down, gripping the edge of the table so tightly the wood creaks. The attorney turns back to Aspen. You were saying? Aspen's voice softens, shakes, but pushes forward anyway. I heard Dad say he wanted to leave before any of the wives knew. Before the fights, before the cameras, before Mom even suspected it. He was planning it all long before the family fell apart. Another wave of whispers floods the courtroom. But Aspen continues. And I heard who he wanted to leave with, who he was planning everything around, who the new family was supposed to be. Every eye in the room turns slowly toward Robin. Robin covers her mouth with her trembling hand. Tears spill freely, but she shakes her head as if begging Aspen not to say it. But Aspen does. He told someone on the phone he'd already made up his mind, that he was choosing Robin long before she married him. Christine's breath catches. Janelle looks down at the table, her throat tightening. Mary closes her eyes, defeated. And Robin? Robin breaks completely, sobbing into her hands. Kody stands again, fists balled. You don't understand anything. That is not what happened. But the judge slams his gavel. Mr. Brown, sit down. Kody sits. But the fury doesn't leave his eyes. Aspen wipes her tears, steadying herself. I'm not finished. The attorney gestures gently. Go on. Aspen swallows hard, then speaks words that freeze the room completely. What Dad doesn't know is that I wasn't the only one who heard that call. The courtroom falls into such a deep silence that even the overhead lights seem to hum louder. Someone else heard. Someone who never spoke. Someone whose testimony could destroy every lie left standing. Aspen takes a shaky breath. And that person is ready to come forward. A collective shiver moves through the gallery. The judge leans forward. Ms. Brown, who are you referring to? Aspen hesitates, then looks toward the back of the courtroom. Slowly, Very slowly, another figure rises from one of the benches. A figure the Brown family hasn't seen in years. A figure Kody hoped would never return. And as they step into the aisle, the judge, the attorneys, the audience, even the camera operators stare in stunned silence. Aspen whispers, voice trembling, "It's her." She heard everything. She steps forward, and just before the camera swings toward her face, the screen cuts to black. Begins not in a courtroom, but in a parking lot behind it. And not the loud, chaotic kind filled with reporters, but a quiet corner where the sun doesn't fully reach. The concrete is cracked, a thin line of weeds pushing through the fracture like nature is trying to reclaim what humans have ruined. The wind whistles just enough to unsettle the nerves, like it's whispering warnings no one wants to hear. And Christine stands there, arms wrapped around herself, staring at the ground as if the asphalt holds the answers she's been chasing for years. She had stepped out during the recess, not because she needed air, though she did, but because the weight inside the courtroom was pressing too hard on her chest, the kind of pressure that makes your breath stick halfway up your throat. She wipes her eyes, trying to stay strong, but today it's harder. Today feels like the day everything she tried to protect her children from is coming to the surface, clawing its way up through truths she kept buried. She isn't just a mother anymore, or a former wife, or a plaintiff. She's a witness to her own family's collapse. And worst of all, she can't shield anyone from it. Behind her, the door creaks open, and Janelle steps out, clutching her sweater closed against the wind. She doesn't say anything at first. She just stands beside Christine, shoulder to shoulder, offering silent support the way she has for years. The silence between them feels familiar, almost comforting. They've spent most of their lives communicating without words, especially when the weight of the family became too heavy to speak aloud. After a long moment, Janelle finally says, "You okay?" Christine lets out a small, humorless laugh. "I don't think okay exists anymore." Janelle nods, eyes fixed on the parking lot ahead of them. "Yeah," she murmurs. "I know." They stand there for a long moment, letting the wind fill the space their voices used to occupy. Christine feels the tears she thought she'd dried start to well again, but she forces them down. She's tired of crying, tired of hurting, tired of waiting for a truth she already knows deep inside her chest. She hears footsteps behind them and tenses, thinking it might be Kody, but instead it's Mary. Her expression is complicated, as always. A mixture of guilt, sorrow, anger, and something that looks like regret, but never quite forms into it fully. She approaches slowly, like she's unsure whether she's welcome, but she comes anyway. "I didn't know Aspen was coming," Mary says softly. Christine inhales deeply, steadying herself. "Neither did I." "She looked terrified," Mary adds. "She looked like she's been holding that truth for years," Janelle replies, voice quiet but firm. Another silence. Another gust of wind. Another memory pushing its way up through the cracks. Christine finally speaks again. "I thought maybe this would all be easier. If we just stuck to the facts, if we just stayed calm, but Aspen walking in there," her voice breaks. "It made everything real. Too real." Janelle steps closer, resting a hand on her shoulder. She's stronger than we think. Christine nods, but doesn't answer. Because strength has never been the issue. Pain has. Inside the courthouse, the tension only grows thicker. Robin sits alone on one of the benches, her face blotchy from crying, her hands pressed tightly together as if in prayer. She stares ahead, eyes unfocused, breaths uneven. Every whisper around her feels like an accusation, even when no one is speaking her name. Because she knows what they're thinking. She knows what Aspen said, and she knows what Kody's silence means. He fears the truth just as much as she does. Kody stands near the corner, talking to his attorney, though talking isn't the right word. He's pacing, running his hands through his hair, muttering curses under his breath. He tries to project anger, but anyone who knows him, truly knows him, can see the panic simmering beneath the surface. "She wasn't supposed to be here," he mutters. "She wasn't supposed to testify. The attorney tries to calm him, but it doesn't work. Kody is unraveling, thread by thread. What is she even doing? He snaps. Why would she say that? Why would she twist? She didn't twist anything. A voice interrupts from behind him. Kody turns sharply. It's Logan, tall, firm, expression carved from stone. He's older now, wiser, steadier, and unlike Aspen, his anger isn't trembling or fragile. It's solid, controlled. The kind of anger that comes from years of watching someone you once trusted tear down everything he claimed to love. Kody, he says. Not dad, not father, not anything warm, just the name. She told the truth. You just don't like the part where she finally said it out loud. Kody's throat tightens. Logan, don't start. Oh, I've already started, Logan says, stepping closer. You don't get to be angry because Aspen finally broke under the weight you put on her. Robin shifts uncomfortably, her gaze darting between them. The attorney steps in. This is not the time. Logan cuts him off without even looking at him. I'm not talking to you. Then he leans in slightly, lowering his voice but sharpening the edge of it. You don't get to blame her for remembering what you said. And you don't get to pretend you didn't say it. Kody swallows hard, anger rising. You think you understand? He snaps. You think you know everything? Logan's jaw flexes. I know enough. He doesn't shout. He doesn't shake. He doesn't break. He just walks away, leaving Kody standing there, breath ragged, hands trembling with contained rage. When the recess ends, the courtroom fills back up. The whispers die down, the tension tightens, and the sound of the judge's entrance echoes like thunder. Everyone sits. Everyone waits. Except Christine, who sits with her hands shaking beneath the table, and Robin, who sits with her face buried in a tissue, and Kody, who sits stiff as a statue, eyes fixed straight ahead. Aspen remains on the stand, fingers intertwined, chest rising and falling with the weight of what she's already revealed. But the room knows she isn't done. Not even close. The judge clears his throat. Ms. Brown, you mentioned another person who overheard the conversation you referenced. Are they present in court today? Aspen nods slowly. And are they willing to testify? Another nod. But this one is heavier, sadder. The judge turns toward the door. Please bring the next witness forward. Everyone leans forward. Everyone except Kody, who stiffens, his jaw twitching. The door opens. Someone steps in. Gasps erupt instantly. It's not a sibling, not a former friend, not someone from the family's past marriages. It's someone no one expected to take the stand. Someone who knows the family from the inside, but not as a wife or child. Someone who lived in the shadows of this polygamous life for years, hearing the fights, witnessing the secrets, seeing the cracks form long before the cameras did. A former nanny, but not just any nanny. It's Mindy, the nanny who supposedly never saw anything. The one Robin always defended. The one who stayed silent through every rumor. The one everyone forgot, except the ones who had something to fear from her memory. She walks with slow, steady steps, her expression unreadable, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. Robin's lips part, a barely audible gasp escaping. Mindy, she whispers, voice trembling. What are you doing here? Mindy doesn't answer. She's focused, determined, her eyes fixed straight ahead as she moves toward the stand. Christine's heart pounds. She remembers the nanny, remembers the awkward glances, remembers the tension in Robin's house the year things truly began to fall apart. She remembers wondering, quietly, silently, what Mindy knew but would never say. Now, it turns out, Mindy is ready to speak. She places her hand on the Bible, swears in, and sits. Her posture is perfect, her expression calm, but her fingers tremble slightly, just enough to show the fear she's hiding beneath the surface. The attorney steps forward. Mindy, he says gently, can you explain to the court why you're here today? She inhales deeply. I'm here, she begins, voice trembling, but determined, because I heard the phone call Aspen mentioned. I heard everything. A ripple moves through the room like a wave. Robin shakes her head, tears falling again. Mindy, no. That was years ago. You don't remember, but Mindy cuts her off, voice sharp. I remember everything. Kody's grip tightens on the table until his knuckles turn white. The attorney nods. Please tell the court what you heard. Mindy looks directly at Kody. Not with anger, not with hate, but with something worse. Truth. And then she speaks. You told someone, I don't know who, that you were done with the family. That you couldn't fake unity anymore. That Robin was your real partner. And that everything else was just obligation. Robin sobs harder. Christine's heart shatters. Janelle closes her eyes, trying not to break. Kody opens his mouth to deny it, but Mindy keeps going. You said you were ready to leave, that you were already planning it, that you and Robin were going to start fresh. And you said, she hesitates, tears filling her eyes. You said you'd let the other wives figure out their lives on their own, because you were done carrying them. The room is silent, airless, frozen. Kody stands abruptly, knocking over his chair. That's a lie, he shouts. This is all twisted. You don't understand what I meant. The judge slams his gavel. Mr. Brown, sit down now. But Kody doesn't move. He stands there, chest heaving, eyes blazing with fury, frustration, and fear. Mindy's voice softens. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here because they deserve the truth. And so do your children. Christine's eyes overflow. Janelle wipes her cheek quickly, trying to stay composed. Robin bows her head, tears dripping onto her hands. And Kody finally breaks. His shoulders fall, his breath stutters, his face collapses into something unrecognizable. Not anger, not confidence, not denial, but guilt. Real, undeniable guilt. And just when it seems like Kody might finally speak the truth aloud, finally admit the secrets he's carried for years, a voice from the back of the courtroom cuts him off. A voice no one expected to hear today. A voice that sends a chill through every Brown family member present. Kody didn't just plan to leave, the voice says. He planned who he was taking with him. Everyone turns. Everyone stares. And as the figure steps forward into the center aisle, Christine covers her mouth. Robin stops breathing. Janelle whispers, "Oh my God." Because the person walking forward is someone they all loved, someone they all trusted, someone who disappeared from the family right when things got bad, and now they are finally ready to reveal why. The courtroom goes still. The figure raises their head, and the screen fades to black. When investigators reopen the case, they never expected the biggest breakthrough to come from a dusty, unmarked cardboard box buried at the back of a storage warehouse. It was discovered during a routine evidence audit, nothing more than a formality. But inside that box was a folder labeled only with one word: Kody. The moment detectives opened it, the atmosphere shifted. This wasn't a standard case file. This was something someone had intentionally hidden. Inside lay photographs, handwritten notes, maps, and several pages that looked like they came from an old journal. The deeper investigators went, the more disturbing the content became. Every page circled back to one name: Kody, a person quietly connected to the original investigation but never fully examined. And now, decades later, his secrets were about to be exposed. At first, the notes appeared disjointed, fragments of thoughts scribbled in the margins. But when pieced together, a chilling timeline emerged. Kody had been watching people, tracking them, documenting their routines, and detailing patterns no ordinary person should have known. He had mapped locations, listed dates and times, and even recorded license plate numbers. The level of detail looked less like curiosity and more like surveillance. But there was something else. Hidden among the papers was a small envelope marked "Keep Quiet." Inside were 2 Polaroids, taken on the night the victim disappeared. Both showed a dark street corner, illuminated only by a single street lamp. In the corner of one photo, investigators spotted a vehicle that matched the description of the car seen fleeing the scene decades earlier. Until now, that car had only ever been mentioned in rumors. But the photograph made it real. undeniable evidence that someone present that night had knowingly documented what happened. The disturbing part, the handwriting on the back of the photos matched Kody's handwriting on the rest of the documents. Detectives immediately began digging into Kody's background. What they found shocked even the most seasoned officers. Kody had been questioned only once in the early days of the investigation. At the time, he appeared nervous, but no one pressed him further. He wasn't considered a primary suspect, and after giving a brief statement, he vanished from the investigation entirely. Now, the rediscovered file suggested that someone may have intentionally removed him from the suspect list and hidden the evidence tying him to the scene. Investigators traced his final known addresses, spoke to old acquaintances, and interviewed anyone who might have known him. Former friends described him as secretive, someone who kept everything to himself. One neighbor recalled how Kody often left late at night, carrying a small notebook and never telling anyone where he was going. Another remembered seeing him photograph random houses and alleyways, claiming it was just a hobby. But the most telling discovery came when detectives located an old storage unit rented under Kody's name. Inside, they found a rusted metal lockbox containing even more notes, all written in the same unsettling style. It was as if Kody had been documenting his own obsession, one page at a time. Some pages were torn, others smeared with water damage. But the narrative was clear. He had been following the victim for weeks before the disappearance. Why? What was his motive? And why did he document everything? The answers slowly surfaced through the fragmented journal entries. Kody felt ignored, overlooked, and pushed aside by those around him. The victim had unknowingly crossed paths with him several times, and each interaction, no matter how small, seemed to leave a mark on Kody's fragile mind. His notes revealed resentment, fixation, and ultimately, a twisted sense of justification. He believed he had been wronged, and his writings hinted that he saw the victim as the reason his life had spiraled. One chilling entry read, "If no one sees me, then I'll make them see. If no one hears me, then they will listen when it's too late." This line alone sent shivers through the investigative team. But the most explosive detail came from a page dated one day after the victim went missing. It was short, just a few sentences, but it changed everything. "It's done. No more shadows. No more waiting." Investigators realized the implications instantly. Kody had not only planned the crime, he had confessed to it in writing. The recovered file, the photos, the maps, the journal entries, everything pointed directly to him. After decades of silence, the truth had finally surfaced. Kody wasn't just connected to the case, he was at the center of it. And now, with his secret file fully exposed, the pieces of a mystery that had haunted the community for years were finally falling into place. Just when investigators thought they had uncovered every secret surrounding the case, one final twist emerged, one so unexpected that it flipped the entire investigation upside down. After exposing Kody's hidden file, detectives believed the case was finally solved. They had a suspect, a motive, surveillance-style notes, and even a written confession. But as they prepared to close the case, a forensic analyst made a discovery that changed everything. The paper used in Kody's supposed confession did not exist in the year the journal was dated. At first, investigators dismissed it as a simple mistake. Maybe the paper was mislabeled, or perhaps the journal had been rewritten. But the analyst insisted. The watermarks, ink, composition, and fiber patterns all indicated that the journal entry, the one reading "It's done. No more shadows, no more waiting," had been written years after the disappearance, not days. This revelation cracked open a new layer of suspicion. If the confession wasn't written at the time of the crime, if the pages weren't authentic to that era, then the biggest question emerged. Was the confession even real? Detectives went back through the entire Kody file with fresh eyes. Suddenly, details they had overlooked stood out. Some notes appeared written with different pressure, different ink, even slightly different handwriting. Subtle, but noticeable to trained eyes. Graphology experts were brought in, and after days of analysis, they confirmed what investigators feared. Not every entry in Kody's journal had been written by him. Someone had added to the journal years later. Someone who wanted Kody blamed. Someone who knew the original investigation had gaps and tried to fill them with fake evidence. The twist hit the investigative team like a thunderbolt. The man they had just labeled the main suspect might have been manipulated long after his death. Someone had staged a confession inside his belongings. The next question was obvious. Who would frame a dead man? Investigators reviewed who had access to the original evidence warehouse. Only a handful of people. But disturbingly, one of those employees had abruptly resigned 3 weeks before the cold case was reopened. His name appeared briefly in old files too, as a peripheral witness back then. He wasn't considered important at the time. Just a background figure. A neighbor who claimed he didn't see anything. Now, his name resurfaced in a very different light. Detectives traced his location and discovered something chilling. The former employee had been living under a new identity. Different state, different name, new job. But they found something else in his previous rental property. A shred of paper identical to the type used in Kody's forged journal entries. The walls of the investigation closed in. For weeks, detectives pieced together his movements, from the day of the original crime to the day he tampered with the evidence. Slowly, a darker picture formed. A picture where he was not an innocent bystander, but someone who had been close to the victim. Someone with a quiet obsession. Someone who had slipped through the cracks because the investigation had focused elsewhere. When investigators finally confronted him, his reaction told them everything. He wasn't shocked. He wasn't confused. He simply whispered, "It should have stayed buried." That one sentence confirmed their worst fears. He had planted the fake confession. He had inserted forged pages into Kody's journal. He had hidden the file so that one day, if the case resurfaced, Kody would take the fall. But why? The motive emerged slowly through interviews, recovered emails, and old phone records. He had been infatuated with the victim, and when he was rejected, something inside him snapped. After the crime, he managed to blend back into normal life, unnoticed like a ghost in the background. Years later, when he realized hidden evidence connected Kody to the area, he saw an opportunity. He staged the journal entries. He enhanced the narrative. And he vanished from the investigation just as quietly as he had entered it. But fate caught up with him. Digital forensics, modern analysis, and renewed pressure exposed the truth he thought he buried forever. The final twist was unbearable for the community. The person they least suspected, the quiet, helpful witness who faded into the edges, turned out to be the real force behind the deception. And possibly the crime itself. In the end, Kody wasn't the villain. He was another victim. Manipulated, blamed, used as a shield by someone who understood exactly how to play the system. And as detectives prepared their final report, one line stood out. A reflection on how easily the truth can be rewritten. The courtroom is electric. Every seat is filled, every camera trained, every whisper a small storm waiting to erupt. Aspen sits on the witness stand, her hands pressed together so tightly her knuckles are white, her eyes locked on a point just above Kody's head. She isn't looking at him because she can't. Not yet. Not until the words come out. And then the bailiff calls the next witness forward. It's Mindy, the long-forgotten nanny whose silence kept decades of secrets under wraps. She steps into the aisle, eyes straight ahead, shoulders squared, exuding the calm of someone who knows the weight of what she carries. The courtroom holds its breath. Mindy's voice is steady, but carries an edge that cuts through the tension. "I heard everything that night," she says, referring to the night the family's deepest fracture began. "I know what happened, and who made the choices that no one has ever admitted to." Robin shifts in her seat, covering her mouth. Christine's hands tremble in her lap. Janelle leans forward, her eyes narrowing. Even Mary looks away, as if the truth is too heavy to witness. Kody, meanwhile, clenches his jaw, his fingers gripping the table until the wood creaks. "You were there?" the attorney asks. "Witnessing all of this?" Mindy nods slowly. "I wasn't supposed to see, but I did. And I kept it to myself for years, because I didn't want to destroy this family. Kody's head snaps up. You've been lying all this time, he accuses, his voice trembling between rage and fear. I didn't do anything. You didn't see everything, Mindy replies, calm but unwavering. But I did, and Aspen heard it too. The room seems to shrink as the words hang in the air. Aspen shifts slightly, swallowing hard. She feels the eyes of the entire courtroom drilling into her. She knows that what comes next could destroy what's left of her family, but she can't stay silent anymore. Aspen finally speaks, her voice quivering, but strong. I remember everything Dad said that night. The call, the whispers, the promises. And I remember thinking, I can't let this stay hidden. I have to tell someone. Christine gasps. Robin's shoulders shake. Kody's hands fall to his sides, but his body is taut, ready to react. Janelle closes her eyes, holding back tears. The attorney nods at Aspen. Go on. Aspen swallows, then continues. He was planning it all. The separation, the new family. He told Robin first. He thought I wouldn't hear. But I did. I heard it all. Kody stands abruptly, his chair scraping loudly across the floor. Aspen, that's not true. You're twisting it. The judge slams the gavel. Mr. Brown, sit down. This is your opportunity to listen, not interrupt. Kody's shoulders slump, but the tension is still raw in his posture. Mindy's voice cuts in. Aspen isn't alone. There's evidence, a file, a folder. It's all here, and it proves what she's saying. The courtroom murmurs. Phones are pulled out. The gallery leans forward. Cameras focus on the table where Mindy places a thick manila folder in front of the attorney. Inside are the notes, maps, photographs, Kody's hidden file exposed. The weight of the revelation is immediate. Everyone can see it. Kody's notes, his handwriting, his meticulous documentation of the events everyone had assumed were private. The evidence isn't just circumstantial, it's undeniable. Aspen's voice cracks as she continues. I didn't want it to get this far. But it's the truth, and the truth has to come out, even if it destroys us all. Kody's eyes dart to each of his wives in turn. Christine, Robin, Janelle, Mary. They stare back, each with a mixture of fear, sorrow, and betrayal. The room feels smaller with every second, the tension thick like fog. Robin's hands cover her face, tears slipping through her fingers. I didn't ask for this, she whispers. Christine leans forward, voice shaking. Aspen? Why now? Why after all these years? Because waiting didn't make it better, Aspen says softly. It just made it heavier. The attorney opens the folder, pulling out a photograph. Ms. Brown, can you identify this? Aspen nods. Yes, that's him. That's the night. That's the evidence. The photograph is of a car parked under a street lamp. The faint shadow of someone inside. Dates and notes scribbled in the margin match Kody's meticulous handwriting. Everyone in the room gasps. Kody's face turns pale. The attorney continues, flipping through the file. And these notes, all entries written in your hand, Mr. Brown, these prove planning, intent, and knowledge of events that were previously unknown. Kody rises again, shaking his head. I didn't do anything. This is a misunderstanding. These notes, they don't mean... Enough. The judge slams the gavel. You will remain seated. Aspen's shoulders relax slightly as she speaks. It's not about blame anymore. It's about truth. And everyone deserves to hear it. The room is silent except for the soft flipping of papers and the occasional sniffle. Then, Mindy leans forward. There's one more thing. The person who planted some of the misleading notes is still alive. They wanted Kody to take the fall. But the deception is exposed now. The real story is clear. Kody stumbles back, his mind racing. He wasn't the mastermind, yet he's been implicated for decades. The stress, the lies, the secrets, they all come crashing down in a single moment. Aspen turns to him, tears in her eyes. Dad, it wasn't all on you. Robin looks at him, voice barely audible. Then who? Before the answer can come, the door creaks. A figure steps into the aisle, Someone whose identity will shock the courtroom, whose testimony will unravel every lie left. The gallery leans in, cameras zoom, everyone waits, silent and tense. The judge's gavel hovers, poised for order, and the figure pauses at the threshold, their eyes scanning the room with an expression that says, "I know everything. And now, you will too." The courtroom holds its breath. The next words will either save the family or destroy them forever. And just as the figure opens their mouth, the screen cuts to black.